All I have to say is bienvenido, Wanying, bienvenue, karibu, alahan biku. Welcome to this 2020 edition of the IDA's annual conference, this year a global conference. And as we've been waiting for this to start, I've been watching the participants say hi, and I think we've got representatives from every continent except maybe Antarctica, and then I'm not so sure about Antarctica. More than 2,000 of you have registered from 72 different countries to join us today. And what's amazing to me, the IDA is an organization that started in 1988. I've attended many of the annual meetings, sometimes as few as 30. And to go from that to a couple of thousand people is just amazing. So let me introduce myself. I'm Kelly Beatty. I'm going to serve as your Master of Ceremonies today. And for this first hour, we're going to have what is the global session, as we call it. Let's show who's going to be in each of the coming sessions. This is our Southeast Asian and Australasian session for amazing. We have our speakers are from 12 different countries, 13 different countries actually. And so you'll see there the list, our featured speakers for the first global session. Then we move to Europe. And Africa, and Middle East, and you can see the speakers there. These are all going to be amazing. You can see those in the program, and then finally we'll come back to the Americas, and you'll see the speakers there. You'll notice that we don't have any speakers from the United States, and this was entirely intentional. When we started this idea, planning for it some months ago, it became clear that we were going to have to do it virtually. And because we're doing it virtually, that also meant that we could do it globally. And that's exactly what we've ended up doing. So let's get right into the session here. You know, we have members of our board of directors are from also many different countries. And I'd like to have you listen just for a few minutes to Ken Katner, who is from Texas, an amateur astronomer, and he is the president of our board of directors.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ken Katner. I'm president of the IDA and also sit on the IDA's board of directors. And first of all, I want to welcome you to our global conference, our first virtual version of the conference. And I wanted to tell you a few things about the IDA and why the IDA is important to me. I joined the IDA almost 4 years ago because I have a deep interest in protecting our night skies from light pollution. My interest began many years ago when I was in high school, and I was interested in astrophotography at that time. Over the years, as this interest grew, it became harder and harder to find darker skies since I lived in Houston, Texas, which has a lot of light pollution. I began looking for darker skies and to build an observatory out in the Texas Hill Country. After building the observatory and living in the Hill Country for a short while, I began meeting many other people and advocates who were interested in protecting the night sky from light pollution. And a lot of these advocates were already members of the IDA. I learned from them about the effects of light pollution on humans, various creatures and ecosystems, and nature itself. And so one summer night, I was sitting out looking at the Milky Way glittering overhead, much like the image that's behind me. I could hear the noises of the frogs and the crickets from a nearby pond. And when I gazed at the pond, I could see the reflection of the Milky Way on the pond surface. I realized then how connected the night sky is to all of nature. I could literally see the frogs swimming in the Milky Way as it was painted on the surface of the pond. This was a real personal experience for me and gave me a deep appreciation for how important IDA's work is. Now, to tell you a little bit about the IDA is a recognized authority on light pollution, and it's an organization focused on eliminating light pollution worldwide. Our purpose or mission is to protect the night from light pollution. And our vision is a night sky filled with stars, celebrated and protected around the world as a shared heritage benefiting all living things. And I hope you'll think about and ponder on that vision that we have for the future when you undergo and go through this conference. Now, the IDA has a board that it's a group of fantastic people from around the world, and then you're going to meet many of them over the course of the conference. And the board has a shared commitment to fostering a world where the public holds a cultural view of the night sky as a common space worth defending. And that's why the theme of this year's conference is so important. This year's conference will focus on the environmental and cultural threat that light pollution poses to people who have been unrepresented in the work to protect the night from light pollution. And we invite discussions from you all about how to address these threats and for you to think about that during our conference. So over the next 24 hours, you'll hear from a dozen amazing dark sky ambassadors from as many different countries. As you listen to them, we invite you to reflect on what new ideas resonate with you. What is energizing you as you think about returning to your dark sky protection work? We have approximately 1,600 participants from 70 countries signed up for our conference. In the breakout sessions, you'll have the opportunity to virtually meet with many people worldwide, and I hope you take that advantage and do so. We hope that everyone will leave the conference with renewed enthusiasm to strengthen the dark sky movement and a personal commitment to return in 12 months and report on the steps that you took to defend the night sky. So in closing, I want to extend a heartfelt thanks to Ruskin Hartley, the IDA's Executive Director, and each of our staff members for the hard work and dedication they bring to making this conference a reality and something to motivate you in our collective efforts to protect the night sky from light pollution. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great conference.
Well, okay. Thank you, Ken. Ken has been a great resource and helpful in all ways. One of the things that has happened under his leadership as president of our board of directors is that we have created an international committee. We're trying very hard to put the I in the IDA, International Dark Sky Association. And the chairs of that committee are Kelly Pendoley from Australia and also Marnie Ogg, also from Australia. And they've prepared a little video to introduce themselves and their committee to you as well. So, Betty Mai, if we can play that, we'll be hearing from the International Committee of our board.
Hello, my name's Kelly Pendoley. I'm from Perth, Western Australia, and I'm the co-chair of the International Dark Sky Association's International Committee. 12 committee members, 10 languages, 8 time zones, and 1 message: save our dark skies. Please join me in welcoming these international voices to the IDA.
Hello， 大家好，我係嚟自香港嘅 Exodus， 非常榮幸可以加入國際暗天協會，齊來守護夜空。
Olá pessoal, eu sou a Silvia Carneiro, arquiteta e lighting designer, e eu estou promovendo a International Dark Sky Association no Brasil.
أنا محمد من مصر وأنا جزء من International Dark Sky Association.
IDA のさらなる国際化にご協力させていただきます。
Hello, my name is Georgia, and I'm representing the International Dark Sky Association from County Mayo in Ireland.
Hola, saludos desde Argentina, mi nombre es Ricardo y represento a la comunidad internacional en la International Dark Sky Association.
Samyukta. Ninaongeza kwa AI ya IDA katika nchi ya Kenya.
Je suis Rémi Boucher au Canada et je représente la communauté internationale de l'International Dark Sky Association.
Hi, my name's Marnie Ogg and I'm in Sydney, Australia, and I'm supporting the International Dark Sky Association's International Committee.
大家好，我是李正秋，台湾协会。我们的口号是“始于星空，直面光海”。
That's great. No skies were harmed in the making of this film. You know that as those many voices from around the world were making their welcome, I've been watching the chat and again just seeing dozens, hundreds of you from all over the world chiming in how grateful you are to be here and how grateful we are to have you be here. To extend that welcome, I'd like to introduce now Ruskin Hartley, who's the IDA's executive director. He's been in the saddle for about 18 months now, and it's been a terrific 18 months and a very busy one for him. Ruskin?
Well, thank you, Kelly. It's wow. Likewise, I'm just so inspired by seeing all the names and the places around the world showing up on that chat window. Particular shout out to a couple of people. Tim Hunter, the co-founder of IDA, is joining us from Tucson, Arizona. And also to my parents. I saw my dad's name pop up in the chat. So welcome, Dad. Welcome, Derek, from up there in the north of England. Let me get this going. So, you know, like many of you, I've spent more time at home over the past 9 months than ever before. As the global pandemic has struck, I've heard from people worldwide that they found solace in looking up at the night sky and realizing that loved ones, even in different countries, share the same sky. Who enjoyed the sight of Comet Neowise or the Perseids, or maybe was concerned as the train of satellites processed across the sky over the last few months? You know, interest in astronomy and stargazing is burgeoning. Interest in nature-based tourism, including dark sky tourism, is booming. But you know, many have looked up and wondered, where are the stars? Just a minute. Having technology problems. Today, 55% of the world's population lives in cities, a number projected to rise by 68% by 2050. Therefore, for most people around the world, light pollution is part of their daily lives, whether they know it or not. For them, light pollution is more than losing the stars overhead. It's about light trespass, wasted public resources, and yes, inability to sleep in a dark room at night. I have a feeling that most of the people at this conference understand what light pollution is, and I know that many of you are taking steps to address it in your home and your community. But the vast majority of people on Earth are not familiar with light pollution. They don't know why it matters. They don't know about the simple steps they can take to reduce it. In fact, 2 years ago, that was me. I'd been working in conservation for 20 years and never really thought about light pollution as an issue that's worthy of tackling. I did know one thing. I know that when I lived in the Bay Area, I was missing the stars overhead, but increasingly people are so disconnected from what the night is that they don't even know what they're missing. They don't know that there should be stars overhead. To put it simply, light pollution is wasted light, light that serves no useful purpose for people. This ugly sky glow is growing twice the rate of population growth. Unless we take decisive action today, these trends will accelerate. Why care about light pollution with so many pressing issues that the world is facing today? I believe that it is linked with 3 other crises that our planet is facing. First, wildlife. Around the world, we are losing wildlife from habitat loss, habitat fragmentation, and a myriad of other reasons. Insects are declining at about 9% per decade. There's been a 29% decline in birds in North America since the 1970s. Clownfish do not reproduce under artificial life. Coral has trouble reproducing. And we recently learned that deer are being attracted into communities in Utah by the perpetual twilight cast by the streetlights. And those of you who live in the western part of the states, you know that where there are deer, the cougars soon follow. Yes, we are entering the 6th global extinction. We have clear evidence that light pollution contributes to many of these declines. Light levels as low as 1 lux in the wrong place and the wrong time impacts wildlife. That's as much light as emitted by a birthday candle that you're about to blow out. Because of this all-pervasive impact, a recent article in The Guardian called on light pollution to be regulated, as is air pollution and water pollution in many countries. And unlike other sources of environmental stress, once light pollution is addressed, it is immediately removed as a threat. It's not like plastics in the ocean or a forest that can take decades or in fact centuries to regrow. Climate crisis. This clearly is the defining global issue of our time. Light pollution, we believe, is a physical manifestation of wasted energy and hence carbon emissions. Despite the transition to energy efficient solid state lighting, there remains a lot of inefficient and frankly wasted light in the world. In many places, the very fact that light now is more efficient has actually spurred an increase in the consumption of light. Our world is getting brighter needlessly. Recent advances in LED technology demonstrate that we can reduce light pollution and significantly reduce carbon emissions. We no longer have to choose between energy efficient outdoor light and light pollution. Reducing light pollution reduces carbon emissions no matter how energy efficient that lighting is. And third, social justice. A recent paper from our friends up at the University of Utah found evidence of disparities in light pollution exposure based upon racial and socioeconomic status. Quote, Americans of Asian, Hispanic, or Black race ethnicity had exposures to light pollution in their neighborhoods that were approximately 2 times that of white Americans. This pattern of disparity mirrors those found in exposures to air and water pollution in many locations around the world. It is not acceptable. It is clear that light pollution contributes to many of the issues facing the global community. What sets it apart from a technical perspective is we know how to address the issue. By using light wisely, we can have an immediate impact, saving money while safeguarding the nocturnal environment and actually creating more beautiful urban places to live and work and enjoy being. What we lack is an understanding of what is at risk and the collective will to address it. I think that's why the conversation over the next 24 hours are so important. Light pollution does not recognize boundaries. To solve light pollution globally, we need to grow the community of dark sky advocates, which means identifying new avenues for engagement, new reasons for more people to care, and bringing more people into this movement. I'm excited to hear from our distinguished presenters over the coming 24 hours. I know I'm going to learn a ton about this movement and how it's manifested in dozens of countries around the world. But I'm particularly excited to launch the conference with Dr. Annette Lee, discussing the cultural aspects of light pollution and why rebuilding our relationship with the sky is essential to addressing these global issues. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ruskin. Very well put and gave us a lot of food for thought there. I'm gratified that this is becoming a worldwide movement. As you point out, light pollution is a kind of pollution like any other kind, and it has the advantage of being so simple to solve, so easy to reverse course and to improve the situation that we have. We're going to take a moment here just before I introduce our keynote speaker, Annette Lee, to have another little poll question, because you all did so well on that first one. It's time to move on to a second one. So if you can cue it up, here it is. Why do you care about dark skies? And you can pick whatever one is best suits your notion right there. And we'll take a moment to have that queue up. This is not one of those vote early and often situations. Okay. Let's see what the tally is. Wow, it's very nicely spread out among all of those different options. You can read them there. Some of them that are interesting. The winner barely is ecosystem health and wildlife conservation. Those are closely related, of course. Human health, dark sky inspiration, and the heritage of dark skies. That's one of the things that we've talked about. What I want you to notice here, among all of you who've replied, is that astronomy, astrophotography, and astrotourism are certainly important. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that was the founding rationale for the IDA back in 1988 in Tucson, Arizona, to help protect the dark skies over Tucson and nearby Kitt Peak National Observatory. But it has become so much more interdisciplinary and involving every aspect of the nocturnal ecology and energy conservation and all those other reasons that we bring to the table. So let's close with that. And Betty Maya, at least for me, I continue to see Ruskin, who's great to look at, but we're going to have to shift here. I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, who's Annette Lee. She is an astrophysicist at St. Cloud State University, an artist, a professor, a director of the Native Skywatchers Research and Programming Initiative. This initiative seeks to remember and revitalize indigenous star and earth knowledge. In addition, for more than 30 years, she has served as a teacher, a university instructor, educator, program administrator, professional visual artist, and researcher. Annette's keynote address today, you'll see her there, will set the stage for a worldwide conversation about the environmental and cultural threat that light pollution poses to people who have been inadequately represented in the effort to protect the night. Annette, I have been looking forward to your presentation for weeks now. Please take it away and welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Mitakuye Oyasin. My name is Annette Lee. I just want to say hello to everyone, and I'm really honored to speak here. I did pre-record my presentation, so I have that all bundled up for you in case there's any kind of technology glitch. I just wanted to say I am speaking to you from the land we call Minnesota Makoche, the land where the water reflects the sky. And I'm really appreciative that the Dark Skies Association would allow our Indigenous voice to have a place here, a seat at the table, an honored seat at the table in this effort. I will say one thing, I was so impressed by your poll, but I couldn't answer because I was looking for the answer choice. Why do we care about the dark sky? I was looking for something like a spiritual lifeline, something like that. So you're gonna see here in my talk, it's all about our whole self, our whole human experience. And that means mind and body and heart and spirit. So with that, if someone could play the presentation, and I will be here after the presentation for any questions. Thank you. Ilami.
Mitakuye Oyasin. Hello, my relatives. My name is Annette Lee. I am mixed race Lakota. My family name is Wambli Luta, Red Eagle. My communities are Ojibwe and Dakota Lakota. I'm speaking to you from the place we call Minnesota Makoche, the land where the water reflects the sky, Minnesota, US. I want to acknowledge Wichunkpe Oyate. I want to acknowledge the above and below. I want to thank you for being here, making time to listen to these words. And I want to acknowledge all those that have died in this terrible COVID storm and their families. I am an astronomer. I'm proud to say that I've been teaching introductory astronomy and doing astronomy education research for the past 15 years. I have the honor and privilege of working with collaborators in Indigenous astronomy all over the world. Last, I want to say I'm also a professional visual artist, and I'm really proud to keep that fire going.
So when we think about relationship to the sky and really to a dark, star-filled night sky, why does it matter? Why is it important to us? What difference does it make? I have 3 points, and the first point is the concept that we are all related. In Lakota, Dakota, this is called Mitakuye Oyasin. One of our Lakota elders, Albert Whitehat Sr., wrote about this concept, Mitakuye Oyasin. He says, philosophically, it states that a person is related to all creation. Mitakuye Oyasin reminds us that we all come from one source, the blood of Inyan, and therefore we need to respect each other. Through these ways, we maintain Wo Lakota, peace. He goes on to say that there was only one philosophy, one culture, and one language. We did not separate prayer from our daily life. Everything was the Lakota way of life, and Mitakuye Oyasin was practiced in all situations. Another way to say this is that we understand from an Indigenous perspective that our human experience can be simplified into 4 parts. What does it mean to be human? It means that we have these 4 parts that make up our being, our essence. So we have our spirits, our minds, our bodies, our hearts. So another elder, Blackfoot elder Leroy Little Bear, talks about 2 important concepts that relate to this idea. One, he says, all things are made of energy. In Aboriginal philosophy, existence consists of energy. All things are animate, imbued with spirit, and in constant motion. He goes on to say, exactly, we are all related. In this realm of energy and spirit, interrelationships between all entities are of paramount importance. So here you can see from our Blackfoot elder, Leroy Little Bear, the same idea that we have this connection through the spiritual. We're all interrelated. Everything with life is interrelated by having that bit of spirit that we carry with us. In Lakota, there's another teaching. This comes from Charlotte Black Elk in the book Lakota Star Knowledge by Ron Goodman. One of the teachings has to do with the Black Hills, Pahasapa, and the children of 4 relations. So Pahasapa is known as the heart of everything that is. And just to simplify, it talks about there was a troubled time, and Maka, Earth, shook herself, cleansing the world. And when this happened, there was like a sort of a rebirth. The Pahasapa remained and stood. What happened is that humans were out of balance. And so the animals got together and decided that humans had to be put out because they were so far out of balance and they were causing these bad consequences. So what happened is they said, well, all 2-leggeds should be destroyed. But then Al brought up the fact that Bear is actually doing okay, and Bear is sort of two-legged, stands up on two legs. So in any case, that was decided at this Council of All Animals that there would be a contest, and the winner would get their way and decide whether or not the humans would be rubbed out, the two-legged. So what happened, the race was around the Pahasapa, the Black Hills, and the animals were going to win, but the magpie went on the back of the buffalo and was able to fly to the finish line and win. And Magpie was in favor of giving the humans one more chance. So interestingly, there's this relationship between the animals that says humans have been given this one more chance. So as Arvo Looking Horse shared with me, when we say Mitakuye Oyasin, there was really originally a longer version that said something like, and especially thanks to the animals. So the next example comes from Dakota knowledge holder Ramona Kido Sately.
Hami Takayepi, Ampetu Kinde Owasi, Chante Washte and Apechu Zapie. Ramona Kido Stately, Amakiapie, Damakota. Hello, my relatives. My name is Ramona Kido Stately, and I am Isanti Dakota. Some of you may know the Dakota as the Sioux, describing the people who lived along the snake-like river here in Minnesota, the Mississippi River. I have just greeted you with a standard greeting in the Dakota language. Dakota is the oldest living language of Minnesota. In fact, Dakota is the language of Minnesota for over 14,000 years. I said Hami Takuyepi, which means hello, my relatives. This greeting serves as a consistent reminder that we are all related. And I don't mean just people being related. I mean we are related to all that is in the universe, including the winged ones or the birds, all of the animals, and even the plants, the air, and the water. To all the students out there, I want you to think about how you can possibly be related to a tree or a plant. Well, I'll tell you. A tree gives us oxygen, which is what we need to breathe in to live. And when we breathe out carbon dioxide, which is what a tree needs to live. This is an important relatedness. But I did say we are all related, and this includes the universe. And so we are also related to the sky and the stars.
The final example comes from our Innu elder, Wilford Buck, and he talks about the star people. He talks about how all things were made by Creator and have spirit, achak. And that's why stones are animate, not inanimate, and this is how we're related. So inside each one of us, there's a piece of Creator, a piece of this original energy. And that's how we're all related, but this piece of creation will also never die. So we have this spirit. Now I would like to present the second reason that I can point to from an Indigenous perspective why the relationship to sky matters so critically and why we depend on having the dark star-filled night sky as a part of our daily lives. This example has to do with we come from the stars. I'm going to give a few specific examples from colleagues and from my own community, Dakota Lakota, but I just want to say that this fundamental idea that we come from the stars is rooted in every Indigenous culture that I have encountered. So to start with, I'll give example from our Dakota Lakota teaching. And the idea is not only that the stars are our oldest living relatives, but the night sky is actually the sacred breath. That amplifies the idea of the relationship with a relative and the oldest relatives. And by following the night sky, we're actually receiving instructions. It's a guidebook of sort. This is not just about making silly pictures, connecting dots and stick figures. It's not even about entertaining stories that we might tell around a campfire under a dark night sky. It's really more like an instruction manual, a roadmap of sort for the place where we came from, the reason for what we're doing here and now in this human lifetime, and also looking forward to the 7 generations. In another source, we can look to the idea of the Milky Way is the Wanaji Tachanku, the spirit road. It's the road in and out of the star world where we were before this lifetime. And then at death, return on that same road. And of course, going through the doorway there at Blue Spirit Woman at the Big Dipper, the scoop in the Big Dipper. Next, I want to point to Ramona Quito Stately's own words and share this short video of the Star People, Uchank Bioyate.
As I prepared for the birth of my first child, I knew that I was blessed by the Creator with a new stage in my life, motherhood. I anticipated the changes that I would experience physically, and I knew that over time I would have to prepare for the Wakaheja, or sacred little one. We call children sacred because of all the people in the universe, the children are the closest to the Creator. After all, they have just come from that spiritual realm and at birth cross into this place on earth. All children are sacred. They are pure, they are innocent, and they are perfect. If you are a child, this means you too. In preparation for my new baby, I created a beaded pouch like many Dakota mothers do. The pouch in the shape of a turtle is the same as the shape of the constellation we call Kea, the turtle. Once the baby is born, we take the umbilical cord from the baby and place it inside the turtle and then sew it closed. This represents the connection to the star world and serves as a lifelong lesson to that child that we are the star people. So while baby is in mother's belly, they are fed and given nutrients through the umbilical cord. Once children are born, that connection is put into Kea, and we reconnect that child to the stars. For Dakota people, we sometimes make these amulets gender specific. For a girl, we use a turtle, and for a boy, a salamander. A turtle is a very powerful symbol for us. Among many other things, if a turtle becomes frozen, it will stay that way until it warms up. Once it thaws out, the heart will beat again, and the turtle will walk away. Imagine having such a strong heart. The salamander is similar for boys. Have you ever seen a salamander or a lizard lose its tail? It just grows right back. We see this as resiliency, or the ability to heal easily. These are prayers we have for all Wakaheja.
The words and writing of our elder Wilfur Buck, we can look to the teaching of the Star People, which starts out as talking about the star woman who roamed through all that is. And she came upon the hole in the sky, which in Innu is the Pleiades. And through that hole, she saw the earth, and she wanted to go there. And in order to journey through to this place, this strange place, she needed the help of Grandmother Spider, who resides in the Milky Way, the road of the spirits. She's actually a doorkeeper. So what happened is that the spirit woman, star woman, asked Mother Spider if she could help her, and she could send a single strand of webbing down through the hole in the sky, the strand that would help her visit Earth. And Grandmother Spider told her that she would, but there were conditions, and the condition was that Star Woman had to become a physical being, and Star Woman accepted. And the next condition is that she could return to the cosmos only after she gave up everything that she experienced while on Earth. Okay, so she agreed. Then Grandmother Spider said that Star Woman had to bring a gift to this strange place to remind everyone of their origin, and Star Woman accepted. So she came to this place to experience, learn, and teach and explore, all through that single strand of webbing, which is an umbilical cord. This is according to Wilfred Buck in his book, Night Sky Star Stories, that we accept a physical form of ourselves on this earth, and when we leave, we give up all that has become dear to us. The gift that was left for us by Star Woman was Star Blanket. The original Star Blanket had 7 points to represent the Pleiades, the hole in the sky, 7 bright stars. And I quote Wilfred, "We are the star children." And the last example I want to share here is from our Dene Navajo elders, Nancy Maryboy and David Begay. They have shared with us the word in Navajo for star, which also means original light that evolves, acknowledges the ancient relationship to the original light that came from the original star. It acknowledges all life, including human life, preceded by the original energy of light, similar to astrophysicists' explanation that we are stardust. Ancient teachings tell us that when humans look at the Milky Way galaxy at night, they are actually looking at themselves, from which energies they actually evolved. The third idea I would like to talk about is related to the reason why the dark star-filled night sky matters from an Indigenous perspective, and that relationship to sky really matters. It has to do with a word that is really more of a philosophy or a worldview. It's called Kepemene, and in a shortened form, it says, "As it is above, it is below." So what this has to do with is that we have our spirit, our mind, our body, our hearts. But the next level of understanding is that there's an above and a below. There's different worlds. One world is that spirit world or that star world, which could be thought of as above. And the other world is the physical plane, where we are now mostly. So these two worlds are equal halves of the whole, and they have a relationship that's a mirroring or a pairing between the above and below. And when we engage in ceremony or intention where we remember this above and below and this reflection, then that places us right there at the doorway, the center. And that doorway opens and there's flow. This is the basic idea of Kepemene. There's flow between the above and below. There's healing. So now I'm going to present our Dakota elder, Janice Bad-Matheson, to share her thoughts and prayers on this idea.
In our Ochete Shakawi traditions, the Wichakpe Oyate, the Star Nation is understood to be the place of origin of the Nagi, the soul. Wanagi Yuhapi, the spirit carrier. We descend down a path worn deep into the handle of the Big Dipper and enter this world through the center of the Dipper between the 4 stars. At one time, there lived a woman spirit at the center of those 4 stars in the Big Dipper. Her name is Wichakpe Towi, Lady Blue Star, or Blue Star Woman. She is a spirit helper who helps the midwives during child labor and birth. The midwives pray to her for assistance and guidance for a safe and healthy birth for both mother and child. As a Dakota woman, I feel very connected and spiritually anchored by the Star Nation, Wichakpe Towi, to the earth spirit of Pteisawi, as is above, as is below. Our elders remind us that our second spirit is above and sends us a blessing when we need it down below. As I looked up to the Star Nation with prayerful acknowledgement and thanks, I am home within and above. When we pray to Wakanta Katukashira, we are sending our voice to the star nation, to the sun, the moon, the universe. The universe hears our voice when giving thanks or a need for direction in life. For we are the seventh sacred direction, and we shall never be lost, and we stand in the center with all of our relatives. Iho.
Next, we're going to listen to our other Dakota elder, Ida Downwin, and she's going to share her thoughts and prayers on this idea, as it is above, it is below.
My elders say the path of our Nagi, spirit, our spirit, is a part of the greater energy of the universe. It is here we meet with the Council of Elders. It is with the Council of Elders that our plan for our life on Unshimaka, on the earth, is made. It is through the path of the souls, the Wanagi Tawa Chanku, the Milky Way. We collect the mystery of our ancestral blood on our path here. We pick up the spiritual strengths, the wisdom, and the knowledge of our ancestors. We are directed to look for the North Star first, the brother who stands frozen in the universe. It is here that we meet Towi, whose name translates as Blue Woman. She is the doorkeeper between the worlds. Towi guides new babies to a safe delivery. It is Towi who whispers the last of our instructions to guide us in this world. Towi is the one who stands and greets us at the doorway when we start our journey home also. My elders say Towi was placed at the doorway and well may be the daughter of Ska, the sacred energy, named Wope, or her Wawayanka. As we move through the doorway and into the arms of our mothers, our grandmothers, or anyone who is acting as a midwife to deliver, this is the one to sing the first song or speak the welcome to this world. Our Wawayanka, our guardian spirit, our Wawayanka, guardian spirit, our Wanagi, the other you is birthed at the same time in the sky world as our Nagi is born in this world. What is below is above. We are connected to our mother and our ancestors by the Chekpa, the navel cord, the umbilical cord. When our Chekpa is cut, we stay connected to our ancestors through carrying our Ma Chekpa and a Chekpa Onaganake, or a navel cord amulet.
Another example that I would like to share here comes from the Ojibwe culture.
This time of year, as soon as the sun sets and the stars come out and you can start seeing constellations, there's a real important one in the night sky, and it becomes more important as the fall goes on. And if you look to the east, you'll see a big square of stars, and it is big. It's really quite a large constellation. And as the fall goes on, each evening it rises higher and higher. And the ancient Greeks called that Pegasus. The Ojibwe called it the Great Moose. And it's a big square of stars, and that constellation was depicted on rock paintings. When the Ojibwe who are familiar with the constellations look at the Ojibwe constellations that we have now put together on this map, those constellations become connected with a story, a myth, and then they also become connected with what's going on in the landscape, what you could call it environmental systems. The word is called local knowledge. That is, if you have local knowledge, it means that you look at the stars and you look at the lakes and you look at the seasons and you look at animal behavior, and it all kind of connects together. And you can explain what's going on in the environment. When the moose in the fall start to get aggressive and they start facing down hunters, and my goodness, a moose will even face down an automobile or a locomotive. In the fall of the year, that's when you hunt moose, because the moose kind of cooperate in this and present themselves to you. And the modern sportsman seasons are located moose, that locate their moose hunting season in the fall of the year for the same reason. The kind of wonderful thing about it is that the Ojibwe tradition says that as a constellation rises, it gains power.
The moose, that was the old stories of a moose. You see moose, he's got white legs. They say that's how much snow is going to be on the ground. So all those things, also the neck that hangs, they hang it, they cut it off. As soon as they kill the moose, that represents the stars. So they hang it. So the moose is always in the stars.
It's important to mention that these ideas are rooted in indigenous astronomies all over the world, First Nation peoples. So I'd like to point to my collaborator, Dwayne Hallmaker, at the University of Melbourne. And he talks about many examples and teachings, but this one is very much in agreement with our idea of Kapemini. As it is above, it is below. And this comes from an Australian Aboriginal elder, and the quote is, "Everything on the land is reflected in the sky." And a very famous example of this, well-known example, is the emu in the sky. So this is made up of the Milky Way, the band of light, as many of you know, and then the head of the emu is the coal sack, so a dark cloud constellation, and then the body extends down with the dark parts of the Milky Way making the emu body. And there's a lot more important teachings and correlated to the animal behavior and the seasonal events of the animal and the seasonal behavior and events of the people on the land. But you can see in this beautiful rock engraving that it's a reflection, a mirroring, a relationship between the above and the below. I'd like to also mention my colleague Te Kahu Ratai painting at the University of Auckland. And he talks about the story of Maui and that teaching and how that is actually seen, Maui's fishhook in the sky, which in Western science is known as Scorpio, with the bright star here, Antares. And then the giant fish that's told in the teaching of Maui. The amazing thing, though, is that it shows this relationship on many levels and many examples, but the giant fish and the fishhook and the waka, the canoe in the teaching, is all reflected in the land itself, in the land of New Zealand. And finally, I can include one more example from our Hawaiian Indigenous colleagues. This comes from Larry Kumara, and this is a Hawaiian proverb: "Wherever I go, I travel with my sky and earth." And Larry Kumara goes on to explain that it is the cultural roots that connect an Indigenous astronomer, a Hawaiian Indigenous person, to place that assures them of who they are. So in conclusion, I would like to say that having a really dark star-filled night sky is of critical importance from the indigenous and the human perspective. I would like to say that our relationship to sky is not just something of entertainment value. It's not something of a luxury item. It is a critical, essential lifeline that we need to protect. It's one thing that COVID has taught us, that as different as we are, we share one air, literally the Earth's atmosphere. And the air has no boundaries. The air takes that big picture perspective, doesn't see politics or gender or race or class. So in the same way, we share one sky. Pilamia, miigwech, thank you.
That was quite a presentation, Annette, and I know that you are still with us online. Over in the chat session, people are, the congratulations and amazing talks and marvelous talks are going by so quickly, I can't even keep up with them. I want everyone to know that this is being recorded, and it's also going out live to Facebook. So the Zoom recording will become a, after this conference is over, will be placed on the IDA's YouTube channel, and you'll also be able to access it from Facebook. And so it is not lost. Many of you have been commenting on how moved you were by Annette's presentation, and Annette, I was as well. You know, every once in a while I get a chance to go out into a forest, and you flashed a couple of these pictures very quickly of just like if I was lying down on the forest floor and looking up through the trees as they stretch out to the stars, there's a connectivity there. And I heard that over and over in the presentations, how Native indigenous peoples saw a sort of synergy between life on Earth and life in the heavens. It's so amazing. Now, I do have a few questions that have already popped up. These are being forwarded to me by the people who have asked questions. Here's one that I think transcends everything. You know, many of us are hearing these stories, these rich stories for the first time. Most of us have grown up with the sort of Western European notion of the lore in the sky. And how can we, who are not as immersed in these Native American indigenous cultures as you are, how can we convey these, communicate these concepts to our audiences? A lot of us do star parties and such in a way that's respectful, and you know, we're winging it because we're not you. Are there resources that we can lean on to refresh us and educate us?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's in a simple word, I can answer that, and it's relationships. Relationships. So I would say the general strategy is to find the indigenous people of whatever land that you're on or whatever culture you're trying to incorporate, to be able to reach out to a person from that nation, that indigenous nation, and to be working directly with them. And they have that content and they have that voice, and they can share that in a way that is consistent with whatever protocol. And it's a lot more trouble, and it's a lot harder that way. It takes more time, but that's the way that it's anchored in the authentic voice in the local community, the indigenous community. So that's definitely the gold standard, developing relationships. So a shorter answer too would be my organization, Grassroots Indigenous Astronomy Revitalization, where we focus on our communities, our Ojibwe and Dakota Lakota. It's called Native Skywatchers. So you can go on our website, nativeskywatchers.org or .com, and we have lots of resources and everything from our native star maps, which you can download, to planispheres, to lesson plans, and we just got awarded a small NASA grant, so we've been able to produce programming. So we had a fantastic event this morning where our Dakota Lakota team, including several of the elders and the knowledge holders that were short clips in the presentation today, that will all be posted. So there's a series of Indigenous astronomy webinars, one each month, that are all led by Indigenous insiders. So that would be another good place to start.
Sorry.
Kelly, you're muted.
Okay, great. All right, sorry about that.
Victory.
If that's the worst that happens in the next 24 hours, we'll be doing great. Let's get down to the practicalities. One of the questions we have is, how did the Dakota Lakota cultures deal with the planets? How did they imagine those to be? You know, all of the stories you tell are rooted in the stars. The Greeks and Romans recognized that the planets were their principal gods, and you know, the planets is derived from the word to wander. What was in their culture? How did they see the planets?
So there's going to be a lot of different answers depending on which indigenous culture, but the ones that are on the top of my mind come from, so say like the Ojibwe, we have the word for Venus is the women's star, Ikwe Anam, the women's star. So as many of you probably know, that Venus has this beautiful motion where it's seen above the horizon for approximately 9 months in the east. The morning star disappears for a while and then is seen in the west right after sunset for 9 months. So that's why Indigenous people all over the world associated this with the feminine. And so like in Ojibwe, it's the women's star. So again, it's the stars and the planets are considered relatives and alive and having their own presence. In Lakota, that Venus is called Peta Luta, which is the red day star, associated as a leader in the Star Nation and the source of the original Lakota 8-pointed star blanket. Wilford talks about a connection with the moose and Mars, and the moose's animal behavior has to do with they will do a kind of a circling motion, and then so this was associated with retrograde motion. And the other exciting thing I can talk about in Ojibwe, the ecliptic is called the Mayingen Makan, which is the wolf's trail. And the wolf has this kind of behavior too, where sort of like the planets got known as renegades and kind of mostly following in line, but every once in a while having like this backwards motion. So this was connected to the wolves. So the wolves will sometimes, if they pick up a scent, go off trail, kind of take their own way. So I guess I could say that there's lots of examples, but not enough time. And also, like, this is a revitalization effort. So we have to really keep in our minds and hearts the history that we're still living in, that colonization. And so much of the indigenous science has been lost, but not all of it. So we're proud and excited to share what is still here with us.
Thanks for that. And on a more serious note, you know, many of the stories that your experts told were designed to be passed on from elders to the children, and so that oral history would not be lost. And how does light pollution affect their ability to convey these stories in modern times? Is anything being lost?
Absolutely. Like I was saying, this we have a lot of common ground here, in our passion for that relationship to sky, and in particular, a really dark star-filled night sky where you can see the Milky Way, you can see the Andromeda Galaxy. But it's not just like that physical part. There's something more than that we're bathing in that starlight. We are walking, we're living that connection, we're feeling it. We talk about watching the sky and knowing the sky, sort of the rhythms. It's sort of like this, I could explain it. Like we watch the seasons and the motions in the sky, the stars and the movements, and it's a certain rhythm. And us as human beings, we have a rhythm, whether we, say it or not. And we get off balance. We kind of get out of whack a lot. And, so when we take the time to pay attention to that rhythm around us in the sky, in the seasons, in the night sky, then it's like we reset, we recalibrate our own rhythm. And that's part of that Kepemene, that participation. It's really the participation that matters. And how can a person, a young person, anyone participate in that relationship with the sky if it's blocked, if it's subdued, if it doesn't even look that great anymore, if it just has that orange hazy glow or something. So it's cutting off this desperately needed lifeline. And especially here in Minnesota, it makes my heart really sad to say we have really serious problems with youth suicide. Our Native youth suicide is 3 times higher, nearly 3 times higher than the national average and the state average. We have great educational disparities. And this was all before COVID. And so I guess what I'm saying here is that we as the Indigenous people, but also even bigger than that, as human beings, we're living in this moment of crisis. And I think we really need to do everything we can as we are faced with this COVID crisis and forced to sort of rethink and reset, to really take a deep look at our humanity and really what we care about before it's too late. And the dark skies is right at the top of the list.
Certainly is. Thank you for that. I just want to remind people that if you've got questions for Annette, there is the chat, which many of you are using, but there's also a Q&A button down at the bottom of your Zoom panel. And that's where Dr. Barentine from the IDA is keeping tabs and passing questions on to me on the sly. He's passing me digital notes. I want to mention that Annette's website is nativeskywatchers.org. And there are some beautiful maps there that show the representations, Native Americans' representations of the night sky. And I also want to mention, for those who might not have seen, I posted it in the chat as well. For those who want a shortcut to interpreting the night sky in many cultures, not just Indigenous and Native American cultures, but many cultures, there's a free program that you can download called Stellarium. That's the word stellar, STELLARIUM.org. It's a free, for a computer, it's a free download. It costs a couple of bucks to load it to your phone. But from there, you can select any of many, many different cultures. I was just scanning it a while ago. There's Navajo, there's other Native American cultures represented there, and all over the world, Maori and African and Asian and so forth. And so if you want to sort of be on a self-education bent, that would be a place that I would suggest going. It's a great place to do that. Now, Annette, I'm going to take the prerogative of moderator. I'm going to ask you a question. I also have taught astronomy at the K through 12 level here in the United States. And one of the things that never ceases to amaze me is how many modern children have never seen a dark sky. You've been teaching for a long time. What's your experience been?
I teach mostly introductory astronomy at the college level, so I have sort of that young person age range, but also as a planetarium director, a lot of 3rd graders and 6th graders. I think that in Minnesota here, at least, that you can drive 5 or 10 minutes and see the dark, a really dark night sky. And as you know, up north, it was just dedicated a protected area up in the boundary waters. So luckily, a lot of the students here have seen a dark night sky. I always ask how many people have seen, say, the Big Dipper. Almost everyone's seen the Big Dipper, Andromeda Galaxy, you know, not as many, but still quite a few. And then the Northern Lights as well. But here's the thing that really amazes me, whether or not they have seen the dark night sky, what always blows me away is how much excitement and curiosity, almost a craving, that's a good word, a craving for more, sort of like this beginning excitement. Yeah, it's so awesome. But then just really, what is that next step? What's the next step there? So I think that those seeds of that connection to sky will never leave us. It's in our DNA. So yeah, I definitely see that a lot of excitement for the night sky, even if I think up here we have higher percentages. I would say at least maybe half the folks, the students, have seen a really dark night sky.
Yeah, there's a growing body of literature that underserved and underrepresented minorities who live in the centers of cities are being denied access to a dark night sky. And in essence, it's a bias against them. Hey, I also wanted to ask that you in many Native American cultures, the Big Dipper is represented as a bear. As I heard one from Maine, where all the stars in the Big Dipper are a sequence of animals, including birds in the tail, and yet this is also this notion of a bear is also in the European and Middle Eastern traditions. What do you think it is about the Big Dipper that makes everybody think it's a bear? I mean, it's got this long tail. Bears don't really have that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love to look for the common ground across cultures and across the globe and actually throughout time. So my favorite example comes from Wilfred Buck and the Innu, the Cree tradition. They have a bear, and that does have a short tail, and it's facing the opposite direction. So I guess the short answer here would be the bear, because it's really looked at as a very strong animal and kind of connected to humans in that it sometimes stands on the two legs. So it's one of the few animals that's sometimes two-legged. And so you have to think those 7 bright stars of the Big Dipper are definitely the most popular. And if anyone has seen one group of stars, it's going to be the Big Dipper. That's the number one. So I think that it was kind of a natural fit to this very strong, admired animal to this very bright group of 7 bright stars. So I just like to say too that in Ojibwe, it's the Ojig, which is a fisher, almost looks like a weasel. So not at all big and strong like a bear, but very clever and strong and courageous in other ways. And of course in Lakota, Dakota, we have the Blue Spirit Woman, a whole different kind of constellation, a doorway. The other thing I was going to mention that's similar to like what you were saying, like with this amazing, how do 2 different cultures come up with the same bear in those 7 stars? And the thing is, like for the Ojibwe, they have the lion. And a lot of people don't even know that their mountain lions are right here native to Minnesota. I know people that have actually seen them here in Minneapolis along the railroad tracks. But mostly they're up north. And so where is that lion, the Ojibwe lion? Well, guess where it is? It's right, the Ojibwe lion, Mashibaju, is the tail of the great panther, the curly tail, is the head of Leo the lion, the Greek lion. So how is that explained, that 2 completely different cultures in different sides of the earth would come up with a lion? out of those stars there, that backwards question mark in the sky. And I really have no idea. I think that's an amazing overlap. And so, you know, in indigenous knowledge systems, there's always that room for the unknown and mystery, almost like mystery is a part of like another kind of teacher. And so like we try to figure out as much as we can with our minds, and that's really fun. But just sometimes there's also this other part that's comes from a different source, an unknown source. So
mystery is a different kind of teacher. I love that. Someone has asked how we can support your work. What can people do? You've got an audience here of roughly 500 people, all of whom are just craving for more of what you do.
Well, that makes my heart really happy to hear, because we are going through such a hard time with COVID. I think that it's really a time where we need to widen the lens of science. I think that this COVID has taught us, you know, besides the fact that we actually share one air, which is, you know, we can't say that enough times. We share the air. The air is the only air we got. We got the Earth's atmosphere, and COVID is teaching us that hard, right? And we share that one sky. So I think that the thing of it is that for so long we thought of science as this objective, separate thing, that it's definitely not part of culture. And I think that's a myth. I think that's a facade. I think the time has come where we need to just admit that because science has been created and done by people, that is embedded with culture. Because culture, the definition can be like ethnicity and race and things like that, but it also has a bigger definition, and that means it's like this underlying philosophy. It's how we live, it's how we interact and experience the rest of the world. So everybody has that. We all have culture, you know, pop culture, mainstream culture, Midwest culture, you know, and so on. So I think that we just need to recognize that science and what we think of as this objective science really came from one culture, and that's Western European culture. And that has gotten us far. And I love science. I am a scientist. I'm an astronomer. But what came with that? What came with that, among other things, is the idea of divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. I started out in mathematics, and I love mathematics. And that is the #1 strategy for problem solving. Divide and conquer. And we have the silo system in the universities, right? So the idea here is that has given us laser focus. You know, we're getting ready to go back to the moon, the Artemis plan 2024, and then to Mars. We've got a lot of really cool stuff happening. But I think there's something that has been left behind, something that has been lost with this laser narrow focus. And that is a part of our humanity, the bigger picture, our heart and spirit, how we can walk in balance and in this relationship, that it's not really just about us as individuals or, you know, companies making money, but that we have this connection to all other human beings. So I think that how can people help? We can help by widening our cultural lens, widening our definition of science, and try to practice that in whatever way we can, by supporting these other viewpoints. Other indigenous sciences can be brought to the table. I like to give the example of the electromagnetic spectrum. So, you know, we see with our eyes very highly sensitive optical instruments between the wavelengths of 400 and 700 nanometers, or red to purple, right? But what if we had been going along saying that was all that existed and no other type of light existed? Okay, I would like to present this analogy as our definition of science has really been anchored in that one wavelength spectrum, the optical light. It's time to widen the lens and acknowledge that all of our indigenous people and peoples from all over the globe have a contribution to science, and we can all use this to work towards solutions to the problems that we face today, like light pollution is one of them.
So terrific. That is so well put. And you know, I want to thank you. Unfortunately, believe it or not, folks, we have come to the near end of our hour and a half of time here for this opening session. Annette, thank you so very much. You have uplifted us all in ways small and large. Some of the comments say that your presentation brought them to tears. So that definitely resonated with everybody here. Just a reminder that we're recording this so that you'll be able to get this again on the IDA's YouTube channel and also on our Facebook page. As we close here, there is one more, I want to do two more things before we close. First is, if we could possibly bring up the, Betty Maya, the PowerPoint with the schedule so that people can be reminded of what is coming up. We're here at the end of that red dashes there on the end, on the left end, and our next session, which will be Australasia, and where you'll hear, among other things, some of the indigenous stories from Australia, New Zealand, the Maori, and so forth. That will begin in just 3 hours or so at 9 o'clock Eastern time, 6 p.m. On the west coast of the U.S., 2 a.m. for those of you in UT in London, and even earlier in the morning. But fortunately, that session is timed to be optimized for the Australasian and Oceania. And so that will begin early in the afternoon on Saturday at 1 p.m. And so the last thing I want to do before we close with this session is to create something. It's not a poll, it's something a little bit different. We're going to create a word cloud. And the question I want to put to you is, first of all, I want to call your attention over there to the chat. You need to open the chat and see the link that Betty Maya has put there. It begins pollev.com. Betty Maya, you might need to do it a couple of different times because it's going to scroll off. And what I want you to go to that link and tell us what inspires you about the Dark Sky movement. What moves you? What has inspired you? What makes your juices run a little bit faster, gets you excited to go out and view the night sky? Again, that link is over on the in the chat session. And I want to, and there you go. You can see I guess we're going to be building this as we go. So you'll see it there building in real time based on your inputs there on the link that you see. This is great. This is modern technology. You can't do this in a stuffy lecture room. You can only do it online. And we're going to let that build. Again, I want to thank, as we draw this portion to a close, you can just keep adding those. We'll have it on display further along. Annette, thank you again for joining us and inspiring us. And for the rest of us, be advised that we've got these extra sessions. Go to your login registration and you'll see there the full schedule of who's going on when, but I can tell you that our next session will begin, as I said, 9 p.m. Eastern time, 2 a.m. Universal time, and a pleasant Saturday afternoon if you're viewing from Australia. And so I think we're going to close for the time being. I'm Kelly Beatty from the International Dark Sky Association, coming to you live from my office in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. But you know, my office is now the world with all of you here with us. Thank you again for joining us. I want to thank the IDA staff who's on the back there helping us out. They've put in many tireless hours getting us to where we are. So we'll see you at the next session. And thank you all for joining us. Until then, adios.
Miigwech, kikawabmen.